Hello and welcome to the Spiritual Life Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Erica Haynes. On this podcast, we'll use spiritual truth and spiritual tools to lighten up your challenges. Hello and welcome back once again to the Spiritual Life Coach Podcast. Today is episode 9 already. It's actually my birthday, the day that I'm recording this, and I just had to make a podcast recording this morning because of the part of the Course in Miracles, which we're back to, where it meets what I was doing and also corrects what I was doing with showing some spiritual practices in the last two episodes, episodes 7 and 8, about getting through your day and staying in a certain consciousness. I had mentioned yesterday that the overall tool is seeing how far you can sustain your practices, or how far you can get into your day on that wholeness that the purposes of your practices are to create, both in going to sleep, falling asleep, and waking, and your morning routines. But the point of the last podcast was that, we only get so far in our day, and then we get distracted, or we get inundated, or we use our brains in ways that don't serve connection and wholeness, or we get triggered into our primal body. Something scares us, something makes us angry, and so we have a hard time wrestling those unconscious patterns and subconscious parts of us that get triggered when the primal body gets triggered. When we are triggered with fear and anger, obviously our consciousness is not whole. It's fragmented, it's fractured, and it's lowered. Because according to the scale of consciousness, those are below courage. Those are more of the ego. Those are more negative states. We'll probably get into the scale of consciousness in more detail in other episodes. But basically, what I'm reading in the Course in Miracles today is a practice that I have used many times in the past. I've even used it recently, but I just had forgotten about it again. It really contradicts in a way. Well, let's say it really augments and adds to and builds on what I was talking about in episode 8, because I was talking about the overall practice being looking at how far you can make it into the day on your practices in the morning. What the Course in Miracles presents in these pages I'm going to read to you today is not just setting up your day through a practice that you do in the morning, but a practice that also has this catch-all, this additional aspect for when you do get out of the state, and helps you return back to it. So this is one that can actually take you further into the day or through the whole day. Probably going to be a lot of reading today, because we're just going to start with the introduction. It's called The New Beginning. It's chapter 30 of A Course in Miracles. The new beginning now becomes the focus of the curriculum. The goal is clear, but now you need specific methods for attaining it. The speed by which it can be reached depends on this one thing alone: your willingness to practice every step. Each one will help a little every time it is attempted. And together will these steps lead you from dreams of judgment to forgiving dreams, and out of pain and fear. They are not new to you, but they are more ideas than rules of thought to you as yet. So now we need to practice them a while until they are the rules by which you live. We seek to make them habits now, so you will have them ready for whatever you need. The first section, rules for decision. Decisions are continuous. You do not always know when you are making them, but with a little practice with the ones you recognize, a set begins to form which sees you through the rest. It is not wise to let yourself become preoccupied with every step you take. The proper set, adopted consciously each time you wake, will put you well ahead. And if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. Do not fight yourself, but think about the kind of day you want, and tell yourself there is a way in which this very day can happen just like that. Then try again to have the day you want. The practice starts with this. They call it the outlook, starts with this. Today, I will make no decisions by myself. So if you're going to have this practice written down in your notes, listener, write that sentence first. Today, I will make no decisions by myself. This means that you're choosing not to be the judge of what to do, but it also must mean that you will not judge the situations where you will be called upon to make response. For if you judge them, you have set the rules for how you should react to them, and then another answer cannot but produce confusion and uncertainty and fear. This is your major problem now. You still make up your mind and then decide to ask what you should do, and what you hear may not resolve the problem as you saw it first. This leads to fear because it contradicts what you perceive, and so you feel attacked and therefore angry. There are rules by which this will not happen, but it does occur at first while you are learning how to hear. Throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, and the things you would experience, and say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. I would write that as your second sentence in the practice. If I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given me. These two procedures, practiced well, will serve to let you be directed without fear, for opposition will not first arise and then become a problem in itself. But there will still be times when you have judged already. Now the answer will provoke attack unless you quickly straighten out your mind to want an answer that will work. Be certain this has happened if you feel yourself unwilling to sit by and ask to have the answer given you. This means you have decided by yourself and cannot see the question. Now you need a quick restorative before you ask again. Remember once again the day you want and recognize that something has occurred that is not part of it. Then realize you have asked a question by yourself and must have set an answer in your terms. Then say, I have no question. All this breathing and noise in the background is my dog, FYI. So this is another sentence to write down. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. This cancels out the terms that you have set. Okay, so that's the third sentence you want to write down. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. So this is your correction. So the first two sentences are what you use to create your day. This is the way I do it. I write those two sentences and I listen. And then I just write out what's going to give me that day. And then I use this part later. Once I get thrown off, I come back to this and say, I have no question. I forgot what to decide. This cancels out the terms that you have set and lets the answer show you what the question must have really been. It's a reset. So they're saying right now to use it when you're answering and you're not letting yourself just listen and hear the answer. Okay, now the dog's going to lick right next to me. So that's those noises. For me, I use this when it's like, well, that wasn't part of my plan. It's like, oh, here's all the things that are going to happen. And I'm going to have this day of peace and ease and freedom. And then all chaos breaks loose. And I'm like, hold on. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. At least I can decide I do not like what I feel now. And so I hope I have been wrong. I want another way to look at this. So those are the next 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences that you'll write down. But let's do the reading in order and see how the course presents it. Read the paragraphs that come between each sentence here. So, I have no question. I forgot what to decide. You've written that down. This cancels out the terms that you have set and lets the answer show you what the question must have really been. Try to observe this rule without delay, despite your opposition, for you have already gotten angry, and your fear of being answered in a different way from what your version of the question asked will gain momentum, until you believe the day you want is one in which you get your answer to your question, and you will not get it, for it would destroy the day of robbing you of what you really want. This can be very hard to realize when once you have decided by yourself the rules that promise you a happy day, yet this decision can still be undone by simple methods that you can accept. If you are so unwilling to receive, you cannot even let your question go. You can begin to change your mind with this. At least I can decide I do not like what I feel now. This much is obvious and paves the way for the next easy step. Having decided that you do not like the way you feel, what could be easier than to continue with? And so I hope I have been wrong. This works against the sense of opposition and reminds you that help is not being thrust upon you, but is something that you want and that you need, because you do not like the way that you feel. This tiny opening will be enough to let you go ahead with just a few more steps you need to let yourself be helped. Now you have reached the turning point, because it has occurred to you that you will gain if what you have decided is not so. Until this point is reached, you will believe your happiness depends on being right. But this much reason have you now attained. You would be better off if you were wrong. This tiny grain of wisdom will suffice to take you further. You are not coerced, but merely hope to get a thing you want. And you can say, in perfect honesty, I want another way to look at this. Okay, so that's the 4 sentences for the correction. There might be a 5th when I turn the page, but I have no question. I forgot what to decide. At least I can decide what I do not like, what I feel right, what I feel now. And so I hope I have been wrong. I want another way to look at this. So you can write all those down. Now you've changed your mind about the day and have remembered what you really want. Its purpose has no longer been obscured by the insane belief that you want it for the goal of being right when you are wrong. Thus is the readiness for asking brought to your awareness. For you cannot be in conflict when you ask for what you want and see that it is this for which you ask. This final step is but an acknowledgement of lack of opposition to be helped. It is a statement of an open mind, not certain yet, but willing to be shown. Okay, this is the last sentence that you'll write down for that. Perhaps there is another way to look at this. What can I lose by asking? Thus, you can now ask a question that makes sense, and so the answer will make sense as well. Nor will you fight against it, for you see that it is you who will be helped by it. It must be clear that it is easier to have a happy day if you prevent unhappiness from entering at all, but this takes practice in the rules that will protect you from the ravages of fear. When this has been achieved, the sorry dream of judgment has forever been undone. But meanwhile, you have need for practicing the rules for its undoing. Let us then consider once again the very first of the decisions which are offered here. We said that you can begin a happy day with the determination not to make decisions by yourself. This seems to be a real decision in itself, and yet you cannot make decisions by yourself. The only question really is with what you choose to make them. That is really all. The first rule, then, is not coercion, but a simple statement of a simple fact. You will not make decisions by yourself, whatever you decide. So now my dog is snoring, although he just became awake again. That's the sound in the background. Okay, the first rule, then, is not coercion, but a simple statement of a simple fact. You will not make decisions by yourself, whatever you decide, for they are made with idols or with God. And you ask help of Antichrist or Christ, and which you choose will join with you and tell you what to do. Your day is not at random. It is set by what you choose to live it with, and how the friend whose counsel you have sought perceives your happiness. You always ask advice before you can decide on anything. Let this be understood, and you can see that there cannot be coercion here, nor grounds for opposition that you may be free. There is no freedom from what must occur, and if you think there is, you must be wrong. The second rule as well is but a fact, for you and your advisor must agree on what you want before it can occur. It is but this agreement that permits all things to happen. Nothing can be caused without some form of union, be it with a dream of judgment or the voice for God. Decisions cause results because they are not made in isolation. They are made by you and your advisor for yourself and for the world as well. The day you want, you offer to the world, for it will be what you have asked for, and will reinforce the rule of your advisor in the world. Whose kingdom is the world for you today? What kind of day will you decide to have? It needs but two who would have happiness this day to promise it to all the world. It needs but two to understand that they cannot decide alone. To guarantee the joy they ask for will be wholly shared, for they have understood the basic law that makes decision powerful and gives all effects that it will ever have. It needs but two. These two are joined before there can be a decision. Let this be the one reminder that you keep in mind, and you will have the day you want, and give it to the world by having it yourself. Your judgment has been lifted from the world by your decision for a happy day. And as you have received, so must you give. Okay. It appears that I use this practice a little bit differently than the way it's outlined in the book. You can use it whatever way works for you, because this is a practice presented in A Course in Miracles, which I think calibrates in about the 500s, because it teaches you forgiveness, which is to dissolve separation, and wholeness and love, and forgiveness calibrates very high. It teaches you self and God and connection and love. This is what I mean about spiritual practice. You use a powerfully calibrated practice like this in your daily life, and it's going to benefit you. So give it a shot. Add it to your practice. And if you like the way that I use it, which is to realign throughout the day, use it that way. The way the Course tells you to use it is slightly different. It's in case you're answering it from what you want, what you think will make you happy. So either way, it is a putting out the phrase, putting out into the universe, today I will make no decisions by myself. If I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given to me. And then, yeah, it does say that. Okay. So first of all, when you put that out into the universe, what happens for me is ideas come through of what I'm going to do that day. And maybe that is me answering the question myself. That's my dog repositioning. You could just do this as an intention setting and accept the day that comes. And when you feel disturbed and dysregulated, you can remind yourself of the day you want to have and say, if I make no decisions by myself, this is the day that will be given to me. Because it does say throughout the day, at any time you think of it and have a quiet moment for reflection, tell yourself again the kind of day you want, the feelings you would have, the things you want to happen to you, and the things you would experience. So then when you're not having a day that's in aligned with your intentions, or a moment that's aligned with your intentions, you can reconnect with the practice, either by reconnecting with the first 2 sentences, which just remind you what day you meant to have, or by doing this canceling out reset process, which I find more effective. I have no question. I forgot what to decide. At least I can decide I do not like what I feel right now, and so I hope I have been wrong. I want another way to look at this. Perhaps there is another way to look at this. What can I lose by asking? I hope I haven't confused anybody. I hope you get the gist and the juice of this practice, and you have it now. It is a practice for you, and it is a practice that, deep sighs from my dog, that it's a practice that allows you to carry your practices and the energy that you cultivate through your practices further and further through your day until it is now your entire life that you are experiencing wholeness, freedom from guilt, freedom from doubt, freedom from blame, freedom from anger and fear, love, peace, and abundance. For questions, to learn more, and to connect with me, you can go to my website, www.ericamhaines.com, or check my Instagram or my TikTok at The Divine Goddess, GODDESSE. Use that well, peace, and happy birthday to me.